Hello, and welcome to our tutorial on how to write a DBQ using Sun the teddy bear. Essentially, the body parts of Sun represent the parts of a good DBQ, and with this method, you'll guarantee yourself a 7. The 7 points of the essay are as follows. There's the thesis, which is represented by the head. Focusing on your thesis throughout the paper can be represented by the body. Document analysis can be represented by his arms, his left arm being the content of the document and his right arm being the analysis of the document. Proper use of evidence throughout the paper can be represented by his legs. His left leg represents the use of contextualization in your intro, and his right leg represents the use of outside evidence. Last but not least, synthesis can be represented by his little cotton tail.
So first we'll start with the context, which is basically the cause of the cause. Whatever the cause of your argument is, context is the cause of that. A good part of context is normally 3 to 5 sentences and sets the stage for your argument. A bad example of context is not long enough or is too long and does not exactly set up your argument perfectly.
Next, you need to know how to write a thesis. So, the thesis is one of the main parts of the essay and it's worth up to 2 points. The first point you get by 1, you have to recognize the HTS, so that could be either causation, periodization, continuity and change over time, or something else. The second part of the first point of the thesis is you have to be able to write the thesis. So you can use a thesis formula to help you organize it. These are 2 good thesis formulas that will help you get the point. Remember, your thesis has to be arguable. You have to be able to take a stand, but it has to be relevant to the prompt. Next, to get the second point, you have to ATQ. Don't sway from the topic. Remain concentrated throughout the paper. Also remain in the same time period. This is how you can get the second thesis point. You need to be able to connect it back to the thesis throughout the paper. And that's how you write your thesis.
Now for the 4th and 5th points, document analysis. For document analysis, you have to utilize the content of at least all but one of the documents. So we really recommend here that you use all of them just in case you make a little mistake. And you use those to support the thesis. And then also you have to explain the significance of that through hipping. So the way we do that is we do the historical context and then we do one of the IP, which is intended audience, point of view, or purpose. And the way we write it is we do FAA. So we do fact, which we can usually do through HIP. You can do one of H and one of IP, or H and one of IP to do the fact. And next you're going to do an analysis of it. And with that analysis, you're going to, talk about why it's significant. And with the next A, what you're going to do is connect that analysis to the paragraph and show how this really relates to the big picture, the entire DBQ. So a bad example of document analysis would be saying in document D, the Ku Klux Klan says that they speak for the great mass of Americans. So a few things are bad with this. One, you don't want to say in document because that's just too outright, and also you don't want to take quotes from the document. That's not really telling them anything because the people reading the essay already have the documents. They don't really care about that. They want to see your analysis and how that's connecting to the big picture. So a good example would be, as blacks migrated north, tensions were manifested through the Ku Klux Klan, who essentially believed that all minority groups were inferior. Document D. This demonstrated a growing resentment to migrations, all manifested through a social group. So we see that we had the historical context with the HIP, and we also had the point of view, and then we said parentheses document D because you don't want to distract the reader by saying in document D. And then we analyzed when we said it demonstrated growing resentment, so that showed it's significant. And we said it was due to migrations, which connects to that the cause part of the thesis, and then all manifested through a social group, which shows the effect part of the thesis.
Now we move on to evidence beyond the documents. In each paragraph, you should have some evidence beyond the documents and use it to support your thesis. In reality, you want to write 6 of these. So, bad example is the Quota Act of 1921 limited migration for many non-Protestant white groups. This is bad because it's just stating what happened, AMSCOing, and doesn't connect to the thesis. A good example is, additionally, migrants from abroad led to many tensions between modernism and traditionalism. The Quota Act of 1921, in response to increasing southeastern European immigration, demonstrated yet another conservative backlash of the 1920s, but this time was in the form of a political legislation.
So we are going to talk about synthesis. So synthesis is something that is worth 1 point, and it is in your benefit if you try it. So the place where you do it is in the last paragraph after you restate your thesis. So in synthesis, there are 3 things you could do. You don't have to do all 3, you just have to do 1. First, you could provide a counter argument and a rebuttal. So you could address the other side of the argument and tell why is it not as good as your argument. Also, give the reasoning. Second thing you could do is mention other themes like political, social, or economic. Show more aspects to the topic that you discussed. Keep in mind that you have to be in the right time period. You cannot just talk about something that happened 100 years before that. Third one. So this is one of the most toughest thing. So what you could do is you could connect it to other historical events that are similar to what you are talking about in the essay in another time period or location and explain how it connects to what you taught in the paper. So for example, a very good synthesis of the consumerism and the debates over modernism and fundamentalism during the roaring 20s is similar to 1950s and 1980s. You cannot just stop there. You have to explain why they were similar. So you have to explain the aspect of consumerism and how it caused debates between conservatism and modernist. Thank you.